Welcome to another episode of One of Us Knows What They're Talking About, and the other one is you. I'm Lori Burch, your host. Join us as we discuss and unpack wills, trusts, estate planning, and probate law in a way that's actually informative, interesting, and, well, hopefully entertaining. Because if you don't have a will, the state of Texas has one for you. Let's dive in. So, speaking of my ex-wife, today we're going to talk about red flags.
Listen, if we want to make this about those kind of red flags.
So we are going to talk about red flags. And I could say one red flag could be someone who's been married and divorced 3 times in their early 30s. It could have been. Perhaps it should have been.
Yeah.
And yet, you know. So I'm really excited about this topic because I think we all encounter red flags in our lives, and we certainly talk about them in our office. And there are a number of different red flags that potential clients and clients say, and I'm sure for them, many of these things seem quite reasonable. And look, if you've been listening and or watching this show, you know that it's mostly tongue-in-cheek. We're not here to bring anybody down or put anybody down. And so something we do have to remind ourselves of is that the legal world is very mystifying. And there are things that we sometimes take for granted as just common knowledge to us that is not common knowledge to others. So they ask questions or have concerns that to us seem really, really basic or silly. None of those things are red flags. No, what we're going to talk about are real red flags where we don't know how you function in this world. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And then I'm not 100% clear on what Sam and Sarah are going to do regarding red flags because they also participate in the red flags of the office. And
It's true.
I don't know if you really picked up on the response that I gave you in the chat about your answer, but it was essentially a okay sort of response. So I don't really know. But so we implement a color-coded flag system. So before we get to the topic of the day, I believe we employ green flags. What does a green flag mean at Burch Law? Green flag, if we're using it as the opposite of red flag, is a good sign that this is somebody we're going to like working with.
Yeah.
Like, por ejemplo, someone who says, "Oh, I love your podcast." Green flag.
I found
right?
the webinar I attended really good and informational.
Green flag. What's another example? Come on, we can come up with some green flags. What's another example?
Oh, we have already picked out some times when both me and my other decision maker, insert name here, are available to come meet with you because we know it's important.
Green flag.
They sign their agreement and everything same day so we can get started.
Green flag.
Don't ghost us.
I will not vape while I'm on my video call with you.
Has somebody done
Green
that?
flag.
People who actually are in a seated position, looking like they're engaged.
In a chair, not on the floor, not on a bed.
With clothes on.
Preferably clothes.
It is sad that all of these are actual examples of meetings that we have had. That they're seated not on the floor, not on a bed, and they're fully clothed. Yes. Just so you know, the
Not
inverse is
things.
true. All of that was red flags. What was that last one, Sam?
Not burning things.
Yeah,
active on
somebody was
burning
tending to a
things.
burn pile.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, so now
we
we've
get
kind of seeped in
into
over.
red flag versus just like unprofessional, disrespectful territory. Like those two kind of
But that's a red flag.
Cool.
it is, but I feel like complaining about something versus an actual red flag, we're towing a line right now.
Yeah. So this one's a little more nuanced, but I do see it happen. And then we're going to dive into red flags, which we already inadvertently have. Because sometimes it's easier to define something by using examples of the opposite.
Yeah.
Right? Yellow flags. Now, I
Oh,
don't know if I feel qualified to try to help, but I will because I see you all implement yellow flags in the notes, but I personally have not given out yellow flags because I'm a very black or white, all or nothing sort of gal. What is a yellow flag? What's an example of a yellow flag at Burch
so
Law?
one of them is, for example, if I were helping my mom out with getting something done and I were to call on her behalf, but I'm like, oh
Yeah.
no, she'll be there, she'll be available, she is totally
Yeah.
on board. That's a yellow flag.
Yeah.
And if
Because
I,
one of our red flags is we'll talk more about this, but one of our red flags is someone who only wants to communicate the intentions of somebody else and then we don't get to talk to that other person.
yeah,
So a yellow flag would be someone who initiates that, but they're saying they can get the person available to talk. And that's understandable.
especially
So it's just
if the
like, all right,
person
we're going
is
to put you
right
in a
there.
yellow flag
Yeah.
category temporarily.
Because we've
What's
had
another
people that
example?
they just have older parents or like a
Yeah.
small language barrier. That's
Most people I
fine.
know, their parents are older than them.
Is
I
a
said elderly.
yellow flag like a beige flag where it's like it's frustrating, but it's not like a deal breaker?
I feel beige flags are something else,
Okay.
but I think you're
Beige.
something like that's frustrating but not a deal breaker can be yellow.
Okay.
I feel beige is like their favorite flavor of ice cream is just vanilla.
What's a yellow flag for a client? Another one or a potential client?
One that we have, this can go either way. There are times whenever we have a client that says they're waiting for their new credit card to come in because sometimes it's legit.
I feel like 90% of the time they do mean it.
But it
I
sounds
think
shady.
100% of the time
Okay.
those people have come through.
Like it sounds really shady. However,
It
with the
does.
we have, I would put it at a yellow flag because there are times whenever, yeah, no, legitimately, they just want the new card for the miles, or they legitimately are waiting for the new card that has
Yeah.
the reward system.
Oh, I
So
do think we did have someone who was going to pay us in cryptocurrency or was waiting for crypto
that's a
or
red
something
flag.
and then we just
Oh,
never heard from them again. So
that's
I
Crypto,
a
can't
red
say
flag.
every
flag.
time, but the vast majority, and I'm not talking about 51% or 60%. I'm talking into the
No,
90%. When people say it and it sounds so shady, like, "Oh, I'm about to get a new credit card when I do," or my debit card's being replaced because this is an epidemic, I feel, because so many people say that to us and they end up coming through. So kudos to them, but that's somewhat of a yellow
so I
flag,
feel
I
like
think.
that's why it's yellow. We have a good track
I
record with
think
it.
I think another yellow flag that is starting to move itself into red flag is when people call the office at weird times,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 in the morning on Sunday.
Or people who submit like submissions at like 3 a.m. Like I get
Yeah,
that that's an appropriate time because we're not here. However, what are you doing at 3
Yeah.
a.m.?
Go
Unless
to
you work a
sleep.
yeah.
graveyard shift,
Well, a
it's a
website
you work
submission
a
I
graveyard
think is
shift.
is better than a phone call.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is why it's not a red flag. Sometimes, and I've been in this boat, you'll call a company when you know they're closed because you're wondering if they might in their voicemail say their hours
Yeah.
or say like where they're located or something like that. So yeah, so those are examples. So let's go ahead and dive in to red flags that we hear at Birch Law. And the really fun part about this is a collective effort. These are ones that various members of Birch Law, whether they are still with us or not, have contributed, and and we're not going to read the whole list or go into the whole list. Um, but I think here's a good one. Well, I'm going to start with this one. This is actually a Cynthia submission, and some of these are a real world example, and then some of them are amalgams of real world examples. So it's not like there was one person who said the specific
Yeah.
thing. It's that this is a common one that we hear. So this is actually like a combination of possibly 10 different people who've reached out to us. So here's one. I just need a simple will. That by itself is a red flag, but let me go ahead and give texture to it. I just need a simple will. I have 2 kids, 2 stepkids. My sick mom lives with me, and I don't want my husband to know anything.
Hmm.
And all of those are things that occur to us. And so let's start up with the simple will. I've been at this a while. There is no legal definition of a simple will. That has no legal meaning. So I ask you, listeners, but since you can't answer me, uh, Burch Law team members, what do you think people mean when they say a simple will?
Cheap.
They have like minimal assets, don't have a house, no car, not a lot of money in their bank account, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's kind of code for I want the cheapest thing you got.
Cheap.
And then it's kind of like pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And then they start revealing all of these other things, like and what I just read to you is a
Kimono
great
parts, if you
example.
will.
You know, yeah, and it's like these are complicated matters, and a simple will doesn't have any actual, like I said, legal meaning. You need the will that you need to have that correctly spells out your wishes and addresses your circumstances. The other thing, the other part of this, which is an independent red flag as well, is you are married and you want to do things without your spouse knowing about it. And here's the deal. It's not that I don't get the sentiment. I do understand it. I don't think that by itself is an issue. A lot of people have difficult relationships and so forth. But trying to redirect your assets and this and that, that actually is what divorce is for. And it's not that I'm here to tell people to get divorced, but I mean I'm not. Uh,
You do the opposite
but
sometimes.
it makes it abundantly difficult to do that, particularly in a state like Texas that is a community property state, where if you don't have a pre or postmarital agreement, you have very little control over who actually owns what. So if you want all the money in your account to go to your kids, but not to your husband, and you don't want him to know, um, half of that money, well, half that money's his, but I mean, really, community property just means you have equal access to the whole. But for simplicity purposes, we'll use that illustration. But it is very difficult, and so when we have these meetings, because we want to try to help everybody, it's not hard to necessarily create a medical power of attorney where you're not naming your spouse to make decisions for you, or um, funeral and burial arrangements, or having access to medical records, and in those things. Like, you can designate other people even if you're married. But when it really comes to the disposition of your money, I mean, one example that happens to people in a community property state is, let's say you want to update your beneficiary on your retirement or your life insurance. If most companies, when they see that you live in Texas, are going to make your spouse sign a consent if you're not going to name them as the primary beneficiary. So you're limited in what you can do. And so ideally, you either try to have a difficult conversation with your spouse, you do a pre or post marital agreement if you're already married, to be post, or you get divorced. I mean, those are kind of your options when it comes to that. But that is something that happens with with a lot of regularity. for us. Sometimes I run scenarios by other firms and something that's so commonplace for us, and they look at me like, "What are you talking about?" Oh, we're just the lucky ones, I
Yeah.
suppose. Any offerings from any of you on this topic before we move to another red flag?
I feel that there's a lot of times when people think they know things about subjects they truly don't know anything about, and they try to blame you for complicating things whenever it's really like, no, I'm talking about the mere minimum you should do.
Yes.
And then they go to Google or they go to a friend of a friend and they're like, well, they just said it was simple. It's like, did you tell
Yeah,
them all of this? Did you let them peek into your closet? Did they see
yeah.
the skeletons?
One of my favorite I Googled it moments is I was meeting with a couple, uh, a married couple. They were in their 80s. Actually, he was 90, and she was afraid that if she died first, that he would get remarried and give all his assets to a new wife. And hey, like that's a scenario that can play out and everything.
Yeah.
The part that was somewhat amusing about this is that every like when she would say something like that, he was like, "I'm 90. I'm 90." It's like, well, what if he gets remarried? I'm 90. And it was like he's just like, I'm so tired. I can't even handle you.
I was
Um,
ready for simply
and
some
then,
quiet.
but she looked at me. She like leaned in. Like when Sarah thinks she has something clever to say. She
Yeah.
like leaned in and she said, "It can happen. I Googled it." And oh no, this is what she said. "It can happen. Go Google it." And I told her, I said, "I don't have to Google it. I'm a lawyer. I know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't need to do that." So things that people see on the internet, and that kind of gets into a gray area because again, I started this with we understand and we try not to take for granted that we have this knowledge. I mean, it's why people need us, that
Yeah.
we take for granted that other people don't know. But it does make it challenging because we are an experienced, high quality firm and we don't charge bargain basement. We charge what it's worth. But you certainly can go to a lot cheaper law firms. So my point in that is when people come to us and hire us, it's typically because they see the value. We don't take for granted that even though we know that you are getting a good return on what you're spending, that it can be a chunk of change. Not everybody has a few $1,000s sitting around. That is an investment on your part, and we take that seriously. So what I'm getting at is that people who do that, to me, that's a level of trust that they've partaken in us. And 99% of our clients, that's exactly how they treat it. The 1% are the red flaggers, right? And they're the ones that still want to second guess everything, especially like when we get into probate. And, there's 100 different scenarios. And so we battle against two things really. And I know I don't want to ruin some of our red flags, but we do battle against the internet stuff, but we battle against your best friend's cousin's roommate who died in Arizona 30 years ago. And like what happened then? And so those are things that we go through. Another red flag that this is not on our list that we've cultivated, but I was thinking about it before. The red flag in a consultation is when a client says, "Oh, there's one more thing." And whenever they say that, you just realize, put your pen down, or at this point, stop typing and just know that you're going to have to completely start over. And one of the best examples of this was a long time ago, but it was two brothers whose father had passed away, and that had a will. It was done correctly, no problems, and I'm like, hot diggity dog. So we sit down, review the will, talk about probate, talk about the process, timelines, this and that, go through about an hour of that. one of them says, "Oh, there's just one more thing." Like the ink isn't even dry on the client agreement, right? Like one more thing. My brother's a felon and I'm on probation right now for a felony. Is that a problem? Now, I'll have you know the law has changed since this happened, but at the time, it was no ifs, ands, or buts. You could not serve as an executor if you're a felon.
Yes.
The law has changed on that, but that was the case. And so everything that we had just talked about completely went out the window because now we don't have a qualified executor to serve. And so, yes, the huge red flag is when they allow you to get through this whole conversation. Everything sounds good. There's all the nodding, right? And oh, there's one more thing. Big, big red flag. Okay, so I like this one. It's another offering from Cynthia. And I think we have several examples of this stated in different ways. And we've already kind of alluded to this, but this is a huge issue that we get with people. So I'll read it as this is, but it encompasses a lot of examples. I need to update powers of attorney for someone else, but they're currently in a medically induced coma. We can bring them out to sign the documents, though.
That happened.
Wild.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't happen. It happens. I don't know why, and it happens frequently enough that this I'm not going to put in a red flag category. It feels like it should be a red flag, but enough reasonably kind, smart, educated people have this presumption. So I'm gonna the idea itself I'm not gonna poo poo, but if someone is going to if you want a power of attorney over somebody, they have to sign it. They have to be in their right mind to be able to intentionally sign it. Now, when it comes to a will, there um, there's a lower threshold of of what they have to be aware of. It's really just having a lucid interval, but there still has to be something. So if someone has full blown dementia, who's in a medically induced coma, whatever it is, they're not going to be able to sign any paperwork. It is too late. And I think we use the example of a potential yellow flag that could go red or green when people call on behalf of others. And it's always going to turn to a red flag when we find out that the other person is not conscious.
Yes.
Seems important.
It's important. You
Like,
would think that people would assume that. But I'm here to tell you, friends, far too many people make this mistake. And so apparently, this is not the common knowledge that I once thought it was.
I will elaborate that this exact thing, like, it has gone to where no, this person cannot sign. This specific time, the person who would need to sign the documents, they were discussing it. And there was a reason why they needed to remain sedated. So they were able to make that decision. They communicated with the doctors, and like the person did call us and they're like, hey, this is weird. And if they acknowledge it, to me, it starts going away from red to, okay, are we orange? Okay, we're yellow.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where that was going. And they said they need to stay sedated just because of their breathing or something. So they said we're completely able to bring them back. They know what's going on. We only need one or two documents. They don't need to touch their wills. They don't need to touch anything else. It's just making decisions in them. And it was just one of those like, okay. But if they acknowledge it's weird, then
Yeah,
it's one of those,
the
okay.
way I look for the same quality in everybody, whether it's personally or professionally. I just want you to have self awareness.
Yeah.
That's really it. I know everybody's damaged, broken. Maybe they want to ask a question that's probably completely in left field, but at least acknowledge it. Like if you're like, I realize this problem, then it's like, okay, yes, your spidey senses were correct. That is a completely ridiculous question. That absolutely cannot be done. Um, so yes, that is something that happens far too often. Uh, at the risk of Sarah having to edit some dead air, I'd like to throw out to see if any of you would like to pick up on one of. I mean, there's so many. There's no way we're going to get through all the red flags that we experience. But is there one that, because Sarah, you don't really deal with it, you only hear us complain about it, but Sam, certainly you are on the receiving end of a lot of these things, whether it's from an intake standpoint or a legal production standpoint, or where I suspect you may go, a signing standpoint.
My eyes immediately went to one that Sarah put. I know we're in the middle of signing my will, but can you just make these changes real quick? It doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
And when it does,
and the reason why that's really a red flag for us is you have to understand all of the communication from various people in various formats through various times that we have communicated. Here are your drafts. Do you have changes or questions? When you get to the signing, like, you actually approve your drafts ahead of time, and it's very clear there are no changes and no questions to be made at your signing, because everything that's printed in front of you will be the final versions of everything you reviewed. And if you've wanted, and again, this is overly communicated to people, that if you have any questions or want to make changes, let's do it. Let's set up meetings with the attorney or your case manager, like all of that. So for us, it is a huge red flag when someone is already there signing, when we've gone through all that work, the drafting, the communication, all of that, they're like, oh, I need to make this change. Or Sam, they'll say, oh, and it's on page 1. So even if you're not someone who likes to look at legal paperwork, at least open it and look at page 1. And there's a reason that I, as the owner and founding attorney of Burch Law, has the best practice of putting people's names in bold and small caps so they jump off the page at you. And the degree of people that misspell their children's names or put the wrong birth date, you have to understand there is no reason we would know those things better than you.
Yeah.
And when people are gracious and they're like, oh, I missed that, I'm so sorry. We've all been there. It's the self-awareness, right? We've all been there. I put my incorrect social security number when I was getting an account changed over to a trust for myself. I felt like a ding dong, but it happened. But the people who are angry about it or accuse us of doing it, that's a red flag. But I think, Cynthia, you had something you wanted to offer.
Yes. One of my favorites, number 21 on the list here. People who send us a message saying, thank you for sending the drafts. We are ready to sign. We reviewed everything. And we sent the drafts maybe, like, this says 5 minutes ago, but typically it happens within like an hour to like 30 minutes. And they're like, okay, yeah, everything looks great. And we're like, did you see the parts where we're missing information or we're asking clarifying questions?
No, that looks great.
There's
like,
stuff
you've
missing.
decided that you've got 3 beneficiaries and you're thinking about what percent you want to divide it up. So what we do is we draft it and we'll have a note, a highlighted note that jumps off the page that says, let us know the percentages that you want. And so these are the people that we'll send the drafts to. And what Cynthia's saying is 5 minutes later, yep, they look good, we're ready to sign.
Or it's like missing a bunch of like contact information,
Yes,
and they
for
have the
agents.
same, and like they have the same agents on everything, and so there's multiple blue highlights. Like, it's,
we make it obnoxious,
come
like that
on.
we're missing something. So, like Lori said earlier, the names jump out at you. So does the missing information.
Yeah.
It's an ungodly blue. Like, it's,
And the reason, and I don't want anybody to think that we're disparaging clients or anything. In some regards we are, but in this example,
doesn't
we're
happen
not.
that often.
This isn't a red flag about the person, okay? This example. These are red flags about having people that are not understanding or really making the effort to confirm the biggest and most long-lasting, fantastic, everlasting, whatever Sam likes to say, decisions of their life. Like these are not things that when we have to interpret them, we can go back and ask you what you meant. And so we just want a little bit of quid pro quo, Clarice, quid pro quo. We just want you to at least take a look at them, at least make sure you spelled your children's names accurately, or that you gave us the right birth date, or that you know which address your sister now lives at. These are things we are not going to know ourselves. So it's just a red flag to us that you may not be really reviewing the documents thoroughly. It's not a red flag that we think that you're batshit crazy. Those are some of the other red flags that we have. Sarah, pick one.
I think one of my favorites, and we've already kind of gone over this, but it's one from Jordan. And it's, so my spouse is incapacitated, but I really need to get their will done. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. So another one that's like that is, and I get this, I'm married, and I understand one of the big benefits to being married is the division of labor. Like you almost get this learned helplessness, like you forget how to do things. Like I no longer really know how to make a customer service call if there's an issue with something in the house because Kimberly now does that. Kimberly does not know how to microwave things now. And I'm pretty certain prior to me, she had to use the microwave. I'm guessing. But I have some like voodoo magic. And really, the only thing I do is I use 50% a lot. That's really it. I like things to be more thoroughly and slowly warmed up than to be nuked like that. So the edges are hot and the inside is cold. Like that's it. But apparently I have some secret knowledge when it comes to microwaving. So, I think division of labor is good. So sometimes we have a married couple where one spouse is leading the way on this. And it's okay, but sometimes when they don't even want us to copy the spouse on emails or it starts to get a little, how do the kids say these days? Sus. And there's been times where they've scheduled a signing. So for us, the signing, like we've had so much communication and work back and forth for the signing. And we're really wondering, is this other person going to show? Like, do they exist, basically? Or is this going to be like a Weekend at Bernie's situation where they kind of like pull somebody in and like take their, I mean, I don't know. But maybe that's more like a yellow flag where we have to determine how we're really feeling about this.
I think it turns red when the spouse who we didn't know if they existed or not does come in and then immediately starts questioning every single decision.
Yeah.
Why is
yeah.
Why is this person on it? Where's this person? Like, oh, this other, like, and it's like, what's the point of before this?
That's wild.
It's always a fun time.
I already told my sister that I wanted her to be the guardian of my children. If you have kids, like you don't do a will, you don't decide that. You don't decide who the guardians are going to be unless you properly make a will and have it spelled out. And then they're not the guardians until the court says it.
Right. No, I do. And actually that's a segue to some red flags that I want to talk about because it's people lacking the understanding of how the law requires you to formalize your decisions so that they can be enforced. So yeah, this idea of you just verbally saying, well, I told my sister that she could be guardian, like that has no legal significance. And what I mean by that is that can't even be testimony that you can give. When it comes to this type of law, it has to be spelled out in a legal document that is signed by the formalities that the law requires. So if it's, and every document has a different requirement on how it's signed in order to be valid, which means in order to work. So with a will, which is typically where you would appoint a guardian for your child, although there is a standalone guardian designation you can do, but a will is the more common way to do that, is it has to be signed by you. It has to be witnessed twice. And then, while this isn't a requirement, it's a recommendation that it's also notarized, because it's valid if it's witnessed twice, but there would have to be one of those witnesses or both of them to come to court when you die to testify that they actually remember you signing this document. So the notarization actually takes care of that requirement. So anyway, the idea is there, you can't just do that. If you're about to go out of town and you're going to leave your kids with your best friend or grandma and grandpa, you don't just type something out or handwrite something that they can make medical decisions. That isn't necessarily going to work. There's formalized documents prescribed by law that you can put that into place so that you know for certain there's not going to be any questions or barriers when that's done. Along the same lines is probably, if we did like a top 5 red flags of things that people say to us, this is solidly in the top 5, possibly the top 3. Well, I did my will online just because it's better than nothing, because we're about to go out of town, but now I'm ready to get this done. But that's probably good enough to get me by, right? Also understand the misperception there, but what I think is the issue for people is the concept that DIY online is better than nothing. Because the fact of the matter is often it is nothing, because it doesn't get signed correctly and there's no close in probate and estate planning. You can't just show it. And is there like a breaking news bulletin coming in?
No.
You
There we
can't
go.
just show it to a court and then like, oh, okay, well, this wasn't really signed according to the law, but at least we have some idea of their intent. No, it just doesn't exist. And then the poor souls that actually get it signed correctly, but then they've created chaos in their documents. And one example that I give a lot, because it happens so much, is married couples in particular. The law treats you as 2 individuals. I frankly don't know why you also don't think of yourselves as 2 individuals, but it's very sweet. You're one now. You're one unit. Maybe spiritually, but your estates are still 2 individual entities. Okay, it's not like you get one social security number. There's new tax ID for the couple. No, you're still 2 individual tax entities, estates. Okay, some of that may be commingled or not, but you are. And so when people fill out this stuff, they just assume, and we know what assuming does, just assume that their spouse would get everything when they die. So they don't think they have to say that. And they'll skip to their kids or their sister. And why is it always these people who make that mistake who end up figuring out how to get it signed properly? Because now we have to use it. I mean, why couldn't they have been the ones who didn't understand it need to be witnessed, right? No, these are the ones that get it signed correctly. And then they've basically disinherited their spouse. And then we have people who have lost homestead exemptions because they didn't understand the language that needs to be in there, and why should they? So this presumption that, oh, I did an internet will, or I did this, or I did that, just to get me by, or why can't I just go do that? And what's interesting, the people, because that's really two different degrees. When the people, and I know, Sam, you've gotten this question because I read y'all's notes, is, well, why can't I just go to the internet and do that? Here's what's fundamentally dishonest when people say that. If they truly, truly thought that it was okay, they would not be calling us. They would just go do it. And so they would, if I answered the phone like I did back in the day, I would get I would get to use the thing that I use on all of you so often when you ask me ridiculous questions. And that is, what does your heart tell you? So when people say, well, why can't I just go online or do this or that? What does your heart tell you? Like, you're calling us. You know that there's something. Maybe the better question and the real question is, I feel like it's probably not a good idea, but I'm tempted. Can you tell me why it's a bad idea? And then we'll be happy to walk them through that. I know Sam and Sarah probably have some really good red flags. Gosh, this could probably be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 episodes, frankly, because there's so much.
Good.
But just in case we don't do a second episode of this anytime soon, I just have to do this stream of consciousness from one of our attorneys. That's going to be your new name. One of our attorneys, Shruti. And so we're not going to break each one of these down at first. I just want to read it. My financial advisor told me I just need a small estate affidavit. My real estate agent told me I just need an affidavit of heirship. My financial advisor warned against me putting my assets in a trust. So I feel like Shruti was in some kind of way where, and it's very real, where we're battling. I'm surprised, like my bank said I just need to do this. I mean, that is the stuff we fight against all of the time. Or their appraisal. This was just yesterday, actually. I feel like someone I was talking to said, oh, the appraisal district said that I just need to do this, that, and the other. It's actually someone from the seminar last night. Well, I talked to the, appraisals office, and they just said that, we need to do this, that, and the other. I'm like, absolutely not accurate whatsoever. So again, when it comes to legal advice, if it's not a licensed attorney in the state you live in, it is called unauthorized practice of law. And so when banks, financial advisors, title companies, when they tell you, oh, you just need to do insert legal document, you really just need to say, I appreciate you trying to help. I'm going to go talk to someone who's actually licensed to give me that advice. But that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
So any other relevant thoughts, or is it time for Sam and Sarah? I want you, Sarah, I want you to isolate that little piece of audio that I just said, and we've got to repurpose that.
Yeah.
Are there any other relevant thoughts, or is it time for Sam and Sarah?
We should start our year in review.
Yes.
We should.
Okay. So what do you got for red flags for
Only
us?
January.
Okay. So we have some red flags. We have them in 3 different categories. So the first one is family.
Oh.
They always use your spare key for random unannounced visits and emergencies. Emergencies in quotes for not watching.
Does your family do that?
No. They live 4 hours away from me. So
Do you think they would if they could?
I mean, we kind of do it to them. Like my sister would just show up to my parents' house. So.
Okay, I think parents are different. They let us in the house.
Yeah. I mean, they usually give my sister a heads up. So I don't think they would.
Okay.
I've just seen, the horror stories.
Okay. Second red flag in your family. They don't support your dreams of becoming a DJ.
Didn't you ask Jamie if that's a reason to get divorced?
Yes. And it's also a red flag in your family.
It's kind of a red flag for an employer to have their marketing coordinator constantly bring up having a dream of being a DJ.
I need you to know I don't have dreams of becoming a DJ, but I do think the DJ arc is really funny.
Sarah, do you not recall that I had some reservations during your interview process because of all the music
I'd be
stuff?
a DJ?
No.
I think that you would think
nobody
it would
actually
be
wants to listen to Nickelback.
I think you would become a DJ just for the bit. Like, I think you would do it like once just for fun. And
I feel like there's few bits you commit to that fully, but you might on that one.
Yeah, I think you would. Just because you would find it.
I want to know what DJ hurt you that you now have this vendetta to always like make light of that profession.
I just there's just something about that arc. I don't know. Just
Okay. Well, on behalf of DJs of the world, I want to apologize for Sarah's constant um, insults to your profession. Okay.
I
All
feel
right.
like there's two types of DJs though. There's like DJ radio show host DJ.
Oh, not that type of
that
DJ.
you sometimes play
No.
music. Hold on, I know, I'm aware. Or there's the rave kind. I'm fully aware what Sarah wants to become. But yeah,
for sure.
I just want to acknowledge that there's more than one kind.
Yeah. Okay, and then our final one for the family section as a red flag is that they use 3-in-1 shampoo, conditioner, and body wash.
Ooh, yeah.
Sorry, Dad.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, who? Dad?
Dad. Yeah. Though to be fair, the last time I went
they only make that for men and babies.
Yeah.
That
To
there
be
is no
fair-
3
Sorry,
in 1
Paul. We love you.
To be fair, the last
For-
time I went
for-
there,
for grown women.
he did have separate ones, so maybe he's learning.
Oh, we love a good evolution.
Yeah.
It does kind of make you wonder, though, like, what's the difference between all those products anyway?
If you actually read the ingredients and you care about it, there's a difference. You'll start learning. If you don't care, don't look.
I
Okay.
think for babies, it's just that everything is the sensitive, soft, antibacterial sort of stuff. So I think all the ingredients that are left when you take out all of those things is the same. So you can wash their hair and their body with the exact same. So I know this because I've been doing it for years.
What? You have kids?
What age do you you start not using it?
I actually have started using when their hair gets a little bit longer and thicker is when I did transition to also using a conditioner, but I do still
different.
use the shampoo and body wash combo, but I add a conditioner to both of their hair. So once they start getting real hair and not just the little fuzz that you like. I mean, both my kids were born with lots of hair, but it's just
Also,
baby
yeah.
hair is just very different.
Yeah, it is. And you have to be conscious of like when people start sweating more or differently than they were a
Oh,
small child.
Yeah.
Like
true.
there's different things, and also like for me, I avoid things with certain ingredients because I have curly hair. So, or like you could avoid certain ingredients if you want like your hair to be brighter or look for certain ingredients.
Yeah.
The same with like people who do purple shampoo, things like that.
Ooh.
So red flag is 3-in-1 body wash,
Yeah.
conditioner, shampoo.
Yeah,
Got
I think
it.
that's a red flag for adult men. It's fine.
All right. So now we have red flags in your pets. First one. Jesus. They never wipe after they use the bathroom. What's up with that?
You say Jesus like you're not the one that wrote
You
it.
came up with it. I stood there, I looked at you, and I questioned a lot.
Okay, what's next?
Sarah, hey Sarah, hey Sarah, real quick. Don't worry about it.
I don't know if I'm going to say this seriously or not. Okay, the next red flag in your pet is they don't support.
Well,
They
that
don't
answers
support
your
your
question.
DJ
You're not
career.
going to be able to say that.
They don't support your DJ
Yeah, they
career.
don't support your dreams of becoming a DJ.
Is that legitimately the
Yes, that is one of them.
Okay.
All right. Number 3, they don't let you go to the bathroom without supervision. Again, what's up with that?
Yeah.
You know you
Well,
have control of the door, Sarah, right?
My cats will
I
scratch at it if I do that.
I ignore them.
I have not gone to the bathroom alone in 5 years.
Well, that's
Going
because
on
you have a
6.
human child.
Poppy's the one that just barges in now.
They gotta know.
They gotta know.
And you could say, I mean, go ahead and say what you might be thinking. Well, lock the door. Okay.
No.
Well, then I'm going to have like a breaking of the handle
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I hear while I'm just trying to do my business. Or then like massive crying and tantrums.
With kids,
So I'd much
there's also
rather
phase
just,
resistance.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With my pets,
And
I'm
then they
like,
all come in. I've got Adley, I've got Poppy, I've got Memphis, Chandler may make an appearance. It's just like a nice little audience.
Chandler is her dog for those that aren't aware.
Well, and Memphis is a cat.
I figured
I was
Memphis
not
is
naming
more.
people.
He's made an appearance
Yeah,
though.
he's a guest star.
Yes. I don't know where it is.
Here's randomly.
All right, what's next,
Okay.
you two hooligans?
So our last category is your other half, your spouse, your partner, whatever you would like to call them. A red flag is that they quit their full-time job to fulfill their their influencer arc.
Influencer arc.
Did
And not
Sarah,
as
I can
wait,
elaborate on
you
this
can
one.
start over. I
Yeah.
have never heard you use the word arc in the 2.5 years, I think, that I've known you. Did you just like learn that phrase and decided, hey, I should use the hell out of it today?
No, Cynthia actually came up with that idea.
Well, hold on. The arc one,
The
I worded it a
idea,
little differently.
it's not
I
an
worded it
idea.
differently.
I don't know.
I worded it
I was going to expand on it when we say that they're like becoming an influencer, that they have like 10 followers, not that they're
Yeah.
like famous
Yeah, they're not making it.
and live off of it.
Yeah, like they barely have 10 followers and they decide to quit their real-time job that actually pays the bills. That's a red flag. Now, if they have several K, they actually have been getting sponsorships, they're making some money, like, yeah, I support that if you have already started it.
Does Luke want to be an influencer?
God,
Oh
no.
my god.
I know he loves
would watch-
attention.
I would watch his videos.
Does he love attention?
No. Not one bit. Well, from you,
For me, but yeah, but I'm his wife. It's
but
different.
no, I was being facetious. It's my arc today.
But Sarah, I could see being the person that stands Luke's video career.
I would 1000%.
I would watch him. I'd give the support, give him a follow,
Yeah.
a like, a subscribe, etc.
I think a red flag is people who say 1000%,
What?
because it's not actually a percent. Percent goes
What
to 100.
about people who say 100p?
I've never heard that in my life.
Okay, because I've said it several times.
She has.
I do say it ironically, and I can't stop now. So it's part of the vernacular.
Well, I'm just glad that I've never been on the receiving end of hearing you say that. And
right.
and
Are there two more?
There's 2 more.
Okay.
There are 2 more.
okay, 2 more. Oh, tear.
All right. Another red flag if your other half, spouse, whatever.
You're the one that wanted to do this.
And I have regrets now. They don't support your dreams of becoming a DJ.
Okay.
Your turn, Sam. Please go.
Okay.
Yeah, what's the last
And
one?
then the very last one that is a red flag for your other half is that they really for this, that they only communicate with you through Snapchat.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Insane.
They use the fun filters because sometimes
Yeah, why not?
I will use the filters on my pets and send those to
Mm.
Jordan via Snapchat.
That's fun.
I haven't had Snapchat in a hot minute. I honestly forgot it existed until today.
I hadn't opened Snapchat in so long that one of my friends sent me something and it sent me a text notification because I hadn't opened it in so long.
I didn't even know it could
Wow.
do that. That's
Yes,
crazy.
it can. I'm just frozen
know
like that. And like that. It's great.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how this actually looks. Okay. Well, good. I think it's important for us all to make sure that we establish what red flags we have when it comes to what we will accept and not accept in our lives, both personally and professionally. Thanks for listening. And just to cover all our bases about what you just heard, I'm sorry and you're welcome. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And tell your friends about us. We do webinars and live events. The best way to stay up to date is to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Links are in the show notes. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover, maybe you have a question you'd like us to answer, or maybe you just want to say hi, hit the link in the show notes or go to burch-law.com/podcast and fill out the contact form.
Much better.
Yeah, I thought that had a lot of energy.